There are many people who would prefer that I only present to you the happy, I'm able to do everything, I've got everything under control, and I can tell you how to keep your life under control and be happy and exciting all the time. And there are some people who actually need me to be honest with you and to tell you what my life is like right now. Sometimes when I tell you what it's like, it's a little hard for me because sometimes I'll get comments like, oh, just don't worry about it and everything will be okay. And those people mean well. It's just because they don't know what to say and they want me to be happy in my life. And I love them for that. Then there'll be other people who comment and say, thank you for telling us what it's like, because I really needed to hear that. Either they're going through it and they feel like they're the only one going through it because they don't know anyone in their offline life that's going through it, or they have someone in their life that's going through it and they don't understand what their loved one is experiencing, or they just feel like they need to be educated because who knows, maybe it could happen to them. I am a person who's basically a positive person and always have been. And I've always believed that things will eventually work out. While God doesn't cause these things to happen, He allows them to happen because we live in a frail world where illnesses do happen, accidents do happen, people make wrong choices and do things that hurt other people through maybe carelessness or actual intent because they are greedy. There are so many things that happen in this world. I feel like when I go to God with my concerns, then I feel comfort. Sometimes He relieves me of my suffering and the things that are going on, and sometimes He helps me just get through them and supports me in them and doesn't immediately relieve me of them, because there are things that I will learn from them, and then there are just things that are long term. That doesn't mean that He doesn't love me. Actually, I felt His love a lot more than when I was strong and healthy and everything was going perfectly all the time, because I was too independent, and it's really easy to get prideful when things are going well and assume that you're just kind of smart and you're making all these good decisions, and even become critical of other people. Well, if they would just make the same kind of decisions that I'm making, then their lives would go better too. And I have felt like a lot of the things that I was prideful about when I was younger have gradually been kind of stripped away from me through sometimes my own decisions, sometimes the decisions of other people, and then sometimes things that have just happened to me, illnesses and different things. I have learned that I am a suspect to the things that happen in this world as anyone. What could be difficult is that feeling of sometimes just being alone in it. And I know that there are you out there that feel the same way, because if you talk about it, then there are people who don't understand, and there are people who actually reject you for it because they just can't stand hearing any hard thing. It's almost like they're afraid if they listen to it, it will bring it on themselves, or they just care about you so much they can't stand to see you suffer. And so they just kind of cut you off from that and talking about that. My mom would do that, but it's just because she loves me so much and she didn't know what to do to help me. And so she would kind of gaslight me a little bit sometimes. And I would say, Mom, I don't need you to fix this because I know you can't. I just need to be able to talk about it. I just need your support. I just need your love. That's all I need from you. She got better about that at the end because she was going through so many things. And sometimes if people are going through things, even if they're different things, then that opens their compassion in their heart. And then they're a little bit more open to talk to and console and comfort and build up other people that are going through things as well. Sometimes they're even willing to understand that while I don't completely understand what you're going through because my challenge is different, I do recognize the underlying feelings. What's really not helpful is when people think that what you're going through isn't bad enough to feel bad about it or to struggle with it. Because they imagine that if they had that challenge, that they would handle it so much better. Because it seems like an insignificant thing to them. Or they are scared by it, right? Or they make false assumptions like you will never get better. I have heard of people who have gotten cancer. Sometimes they're just surrounded by love and help and caring because people kind of understand what cancer is a little bit. But sometimes some of the people that they thought were friends or close to them will just abandon them because it scares them. And underlying, they do have that feeling and that fear that maybe it will happen to them as well. So it's an interesting thing to go through these challenges. And while I've had fibromyalgia for years, I learned not to really talk about it much because there are so many people who don't understand it. There are so many people who think it's like a fake thing and think that you're being lazy on days when things are not going as well. And so they just don't want to hear it. And so I think it's really possible that when you get fibromyalgia, you kind of pull in and you kind of pretend. There's a lot of times that I'll just pretend everything's okay. And I don't ever give up. I always try to do things unless I'm so sick that I just need to take a few days and stay in my nightgown, But my family understands and they're really good about supporting me. Of course, they wish I wasn't having those kinds of days because their life is a little happier when I am feeling good. And when I'm feeling good, they're all happy about it. And I've noticed the same thing from you guys. When I'm feeling good and optimistic and everything is going well, you're just really happy about it. And when I'm having a tough day, some people just can't take it and they'll either feel bad and they just can't watch it and they'll tell me this is so hard to watch. And some people will just unsubscribe because they assume that that means that my channel is just going to be negative from now on. But it's not going to be because my life isn't hard every single day. And then some people assume that when I'm having a good day, it's all over. It's all over. Oh, good. From now on, it's going to be great. I'm so glad you're feeling better. Well, I'm feeling better right then. That's really great. But doesn't mean I won't have a hard time again. And this mild traumatic brain injury, there is such a weird thing about putting mild on the front of that. Because if it's your first time ever having one, then chances are that after a period of time, it could be weeks, it could be a few months, you should return back to normal. But I've just been looking up this morning, why is it that I keep kind of rolling back and some days are harder? Like I got it this morning and I have the headache again. And yesterday was just kind of a weird day. I went out and I kind of wandered around a little bit, which was good, but I had a hard time making myself eat. And so I just grabbed things that were convenient. My granddaughter had made some cookies, so I ate some cookies. And then I'd gone to Trader Joe's and I grabbed some of my favorite things, which included these kind of cinnamon candy things. And then I just couldn't make myself stop and get some real food. So I just opened a package of those and ate about half a package of those. And just hoped and hoped and hoped my husband would make some good dinner. But then he'd been outside cutting down trees that had gone bad, and he had to cut up 2 trees, and his chainsaw didn't work again, and he couldn't get parts to fix it, and so he finally had to buy a new chainsaw. And so then he was exhausted, and today he is not only driving his regular bus routes, but he's doing these activities, so he won't be home till 10 o'clock tonight, so he's going to be really, really tired, and I really do have to take care of myself all day. And the last few weeks, I've been having trouble making myself eat 3 times a day. And I'm thinking that might be a symptom of my brain injury and my concussion, that I'm having such a hard time because I've been hitting the wall. Some days, not so much, and I can do things. So when I do those things, like when I made that apron, it was such a happy day. That was one of the happiest days I've had in a long time. And so I have all these crafts and fun things around that I can do, and I know if I can do them that I'll have a happy day. And I want to finish decorating for spring because I just barely got started, and that will be a happy thing. But I keep hitting that wall of I just can't get there. I can't get there. Today was a day when it was hard for me to get up and get dressed and get ready. I knew it was important. And that little Finch app, I keep mentioning it, but it's been so important to me because I've put all these little steps in there in the morning of getting up and getting dressed and putting my makeup on and taking my medication and doing some meditation and saying a prayer and reading the scriptures, and then eating breakfast, eating lunch, eating dinner, taking a break, cleaning up the kitchen, these basic things that I should be doing, and just checking those off and get a little bit of points reward, which means almost nothing to anybody in the world. But then when I get enough points, I can buy my little Finch some clothes. It seems so silly and so ridiculous, but just doing that little interaction has been encouraging me to do the very basics. And when you're having a day when you're hitting the wall, and I'm not depressed, but I am struggling a little bit, and I could tip into depression. I don't think I would go into like a major depression. I take Lamictal and Trazodone for different reasons, but they are also antidepressants. And they do keep me a little bit even, but I still have that kind of weight on me, that kind of sadness a little bit. And I think the sadness is because I feel like I've been thrown back into what I went through with long COVID. And so just for interest, I looked up COVID and concussion, long COVID, to see if there was any relation. And they have learned so much. I was really surprised. Here's one. The University of Denver finds that history of TBI likely worsens long COVID symptoms. And this is not my first concussion. I had 2 that I recovered from before I got long COVID. Somebody said has one from the National Institutes of Health, traumatic brain injury in the long COVID era. Here's one said, COVID-19 resources for individuals with brain injury. There are like some clinics and stuff you go to, but they don't take insurance, and so I couldn't go to them. Here's one, higher rates of concussion following COVID-19 infection in high school. And concussion and COVID-19, how to manage your recovery. I'll read that article. How we find viable treatment for COVID-19 long haulers. That's great, but that's a company I couldn't afford. And there are other articles that say that they have found that mild COVID linked to brain damage, what that means for you. And I already know that. My cognitive therapist had told me that compared it to damage in a forest. If there's a forest fire and you fly over it, you can see that area that is burned. But what you can't see if you fly over it is if there's like a bug that has affected the forest, because that affects a tree here and a tree there. You have to walk through the forest to see this damage. And when you get long COVID or a TBI, it is kind of the similar thing. Now, I don't know, maybe if you get a real major TBI, you could see that more on MRI or a CT scan. But with long COVID in particular, it will damage all these little brain cells, which is why you have problems with different kinds of things. But the good news with that, and they're confirming that, is that there will be brain cells around those cells that were damaged, and over time they'll kind of take up the function. And so that's why you'll start feeling better. And it takes a while. It took me like 18 months, but then I started to feel like myself again. And then I've had this brain injury again. And I think that's why it's taking me so long. And when I'm really not feeling well, I have the headache, but it's a very specific headache. And it's not like a migraine. It's like my brain is trying to think, and it's in the frontal lobe, which sounds scary, like you've gone crazy or something. But that's just where your brain does so much of the thinking and figuring out and considering. And my brain will start to swell in that area, and then I'll get the headache there because it's like pressure from inside. There's not a lot I can do about it, I found. I just have to kind of wait and try to do different things. Sitting in my chair and watching TV won't necessarily help it. I have to push through this feeling if it's hard. And this feeling in my head is partially what makes it feel so hard. But I kind of just get started. Like I had that video recently about the 5 things you can do to have fun and experience joy. And one of those things is when you don't feel like doing anything, like you're tired, to just try and see what happens. So when I go down and work on my kitchen, because it's in bad shape, good news, I went down afterwards to get myself a bowl of cereal and found out my dear, wonderful husband had done the dishes and had cleaned almost everything, so it's going to be really easy for me to finish. I really do have a great husband. But let me continue telling you what I was worried about. Gary wasn't around. My granddaughter made those cookies, and she cleaned up part of it, but not all of it. And then people were just dumping things. And so it's in worse shape than usual because I just didn't even touch it. But I need to go try. Just get started. And then if it's too much for me, then I'll just go, okay, here's another day that it will fall apart. But I want to try by starting to empty the dishwasher, because then I'll have a place to put the dirty dishes, and hopefully it will kind of snowball. And then there are other things that I can do that will help relieve the headache, and they're just kind of a change, kind of a relaxing thing. So I'm going to try that and see what happens. If I feel up to it, I'm going to go walk around the neighborhood a little bit and get outside and see what I can do, but you're not supposed to do any heavy exercise. So it's just kind of different. Here's an article. It says, TBI and COVID, a dangerous combination. Earlier this year, the Brain Injury Association America issued an open letter to individuals with brain injury. And they found that as many as 1 in 3 people infected with COVID have prolonged mental health or neurological symptoms. Although mental issues like anxiety were more common in patients with less severe disease, persistent neurological symptoms were found in a substantial percentage of hospitalized patients with more severe disease. And so mine would have been considered mild. Glad I didn't get it bad enough I had to be hospitalized. My heart goes out to anyone that did have to be hospitalized, but I got one of the later versions where it wasn't likely to get it. It talked about COVID-19 and neurological symptoms overlap with mTBI symptoms, which I can absolutely confirm. They're almost identical. So I think the combination of having that maybe set it off, and then I've got this, and so I'm trying to figure this out. I can just tell you that COVID was a really, really bad deal. It's a sad thing because we have now found out how much we were lied to, that there were really evil people who were involved in that, and it's a really sad thing. And chances are, even if this didn't happen to you, I can almost guarantee that there are people in your life that this happened to and are struggling with it. Please be supportive of them and understand that this is a real thing, and please don't gaslight them. It is not their fault that this has happened to them. They were just one of the unlucky ones. Some people get it and they seemingly get completely better, and other people don't. And the more we go on, the more we find that there are so many people who don't. And then, of course, I'm just lucky that I have fibromyalgia, and when I'm having a flare, it causes brain fog. And then long COVID causes brain fog. And now I'm convinced that even though I was getting better, my symptoms were getting better, it hadn't gone away, just kind of gone underground. I tell my husband that there are a couple of turning points in my life, and one was when I got long COVID. It just changed my life. It just changed my life. It's a really sad thing for me because I've always been known for my intelligence. I taught myself to read when I was 2. Always got top grades. I graduated from college with honors. When I was working, I was always like 2 or 3 steps ahead of everyone else. And I'm not anymore. And then, of course, there's age, things happen when you're age, but I'm not anymore, and it takes more effort for me and more planning. It's hard for me to plan. It's hard for me to figure out what I'm doing. And then the Lord has just kind of put it on my heart lately that I need to have more talks with you, even if it means I lose a lot of subscribers, because somebody should be documenting this. Somebody should be documenting what it's like, the up and downs of what it's like. And so you can see for yourself that some days are harder than others. Because if I'm only documenting the really good days, then it can give you a false impression. It could make you feel either really discouraged, thinking, why am I not getting better like that? Or you might think, well, my loved one has this, and what's the matter with them? Are they just not tough enough? They're just not strong enough that they get better? Are they just really whiners? Just generally, you might have that false impression. And that is not good for anyone. It's just really not good for anyone. So today I wasn't going to record a video because I am having a little bit harder day. And I prayed, and the Lord just said, look, you need to talk about this too. Just need to talk about this too. So I was going to post my video about how I'm removing negativity out of my life today. But I think instead I'm going to give you a very lightly edited version of this, because I really think you need to see it. But I want you to understand that I have hope. And I know I do have good days. This is a harder day, but it doesn't mean that tomorrow will be a harder day. I've gone back to sleeping in my chair. As hard as I try sleeping in my bed, it starts to deteriorate, and then that makes it harder for me, and I don't feel as well. So I slept in my chair again last night, and I did have a very good night's sleep. And so after about a week of that, that's going to help me feel physically stronger. Assuming I start eating. It's really weird. that I'm having such a hard time eating. I need to do something about that. So yeah, that's where I am. That's what I'm thinking. I really appreciate your love and support. And you could do me a favor. I pray all the time that the women who need to see these videos, whether they are going through these things or other things, but they recognize the experience of up and down, and sometimes they don't feel well, and it's just so helpful to them to hear this. It helps them feel like they're not alone. It gives them hope and understanding, or people who need to see it because they have loved ones, or people who would just be interested in it. I keep praying that the Lord will help those people come to my channel and find it, because I just feel like there's so many out there and there are so few people doing it. I don't know anyone else at this time that's doing this same kind of thing. So you will continue to see me doing things around the house, going outside of my house, having fun. You will also see me talking about things I'm thinking about needing to do, getting rid of the negativity in my life, or thinking about philosophical things. You will still see those things. You'll still see me decluttering. I'm working on my 4th decluttering video. Now, it was a 30-day challenge, but I had to realize pretty quickly it was not 30 days in a row. It's just 30 days. When I can do it at 30 days. So I've done 2 days of the 4th one. And I'm really enjoying that, but I'm not pushing myself to do it on days when it is too much for me to do it. And so that's been a really helpful distinction and helping me understand this up and down and how I manage my life and my home in general. It's all right that I don't do everything every day. Someone asked me to come up with a routine, and I said to them, I will see if I can come up with something helpful. And so I've been thinking about that and trying to work on something that is manageable for me. I think it's going to be interesting, but it's going to take me some time to develop that, just so you know. I hope you have a good day. I hope you stick with me. I hope you're learning something from this, and I hope I see you again. Bye.